of Iron 4's Black Ice. And oh yeah, Arno will sometimes just an hour after I sort of get the stream sort of announced, he will say first, and IKB! Hello, my friend. Yes, hello, Toyjet. So we're getting ready we're going to make some episodes here in a bit, but let's just sort of hit the ground running by coming in here and doing things. Now, I was asked by Ari last night because he was thinking about playing Black Ice for Hoi 4. And I sort of mentioned to him that most of them, and he asked about multiplayer, and sort of mentioned to him, well, multiplayers haven't been particularly good performing well on my channel. Now that doesn't mean that I think multiplayer is a bad thing to do. It's more, I think, that may have something to do with YouTube and how it promotes my channel. But he brought up some really good points. One, our co-op games have done miserable. This one needs auto count, so we'll do that now. The co-op games are some of the ones that have done miserable, and he's right about that for some reason. I don't know why. I thought they were a fun concept. And our multiplayer competitive games, and it's not just Black Ice or something, but it's just we don't ever get past really because I fuck things up. Get past the Battle of France. Either I misclick and things don't go well with one Battle of France, I think against Werewolf or something, and another time I think Toyjet cuts off my entire armor forces in the Low Countries, so the war is over early. So I think that may be part of the problem. So he was thinking that if we could get to Barbarossa, it might be more popular. And so, yeah, someday we will definitely see about some more multiplayer. I just don't know if I'm promoting it right. I like that. Recovery rate, supply grace. Well, yeah. Army fuel capacity. Yeah, well. So someday I do want to do some more multiplayer because I've enjoyed them. Unassigned refinery some sort of displaying back there. Okay. We could use more steel right here. So that's probably because it's going down because trade and whatnot. We'll take a second. There is something of a solution to you trying to manage a major country in a complex mod. Yeah. Okay, synthetic fuel production. Looks like we could increase that by 1. And rubber production. Let's about increasing that. Just have co-op either for the majors or just for Germany, possibly solve. Yeah. I don't know. I think yeah, and it can be like just a 2-player instead of the Ministers game. Or something like that. I think it's as much to do about promotion and getting it out there for the people to watch, as it is about the actual series itself. But yeah, two players for major countries like Germany and UK and USA and Japan, maybe even, because Japan, especially if you're taking the long-term game, you have both the China battles, and then you have the Pacific War. Yeah, that's a lot to handle with. The Soviet Union, it is a big country. There's a lot to do, but admittedly, it is a single front. If you're playing it at all sort of historical and not like going after Japan or something. Yes, I know the Soviet Union does eventually in 1945 go after Japan, but after Japan basically had collapsed. But before then, it is really just a single front country where Germany is, yeah, it has single fronts at times, like against the Western Allies, but even there, you have air war, naval war. But eventually you're looking at fire brigade around other places and the east plus the Eastern Front, so two front there. Italy is just sort of the Mediterranean front, which, that's sort of a one-person kind of thing. Yeah, you're right, Toyjet. But this was sort of my idea with the Ministers' War. And you're right, it's a big front. And I wouldn't say no to the idea of a two-player Soviet nation. But then again, that'd be two players against presumably a single German player managing the German Eastern Front if the other person was going to do, like I say, fire brigades, be ready to deal with, naval invasions, maybe actively helping out as opposed to just turning forces over in the Mediterranean and dealing with things like production back in Germany. And so, it's that kind of a thing. So for however complicated you think the Soviet Union is, you got to double that complexity, in my opinion, for Germany, because although Germany does not have a significant surface fleet, at least it shouldn't. Hello, cool, clever Stone. How you doing? It and I say it shouldn't have. I know Toyjet likes big navies, but shouldn't have a big fleet because it should concentrate more on tank divisions and aircraft and whatnot. But you still have a naval war to deal with in the look of submarines and air attacks on shipping and being prepared for in naval invasions and such. So, yeah, I always thought Germany, is the complicated country. The U.S. is also complicated too, because it is truly the global power, and would also be another excellent way to do a minister's war, because you could have your whole Nimitz-MacArthur, two people, sort of playing the Pacific War. You can have, not just, I know Eisenhower sort of overrunning it here, the war, but you have, sort of a North Africa, but then you get Italy, and then you get, with D-Day invasion, so you're looking at two American fronts there, plus, naval actions and whatnot, and production. What does make it sort of, how do I put this, the U.S. being the boss nation that it is, it sort of makes up for it in that its mistakes are much easier forgiven, shall we say. Because, the one time that Toyjet takes out basically all of my armored force. Oh, could I have kept playing? Yes, I could have kept playing. Play to the bitter end, gamer. Yeah, I know. And I could have started, manufacturing more tanks and training up another, a few tank divisions. But, yeah, if the war was just sort of kind of going to stay, and we did, I think, at that, and I'm probably mixing up some of the playthroughs, that playthrough, Werewolf was playing, I think, the Soviet Union or something in that one, or somebody else was. Well, if it was just going to stay at, Anglo-France versus Germany war, okay, beating up with those few low countries in there, but just say that, yeah, you sort of kind of could have, and maybe Italy was also in on it, so in Germany, Italy versus Britain and France. And if it was just going to be contained to that, yeah, you could have come back and maybe I could have fought on and turned it around. But no way was I going to be able to, do World War II. It would have just remained a single front. Or if allowed, the Soviet Union could have then just plowed into me from the other side, So it was truly a, you've lost type of thing. So for those watching now or later, that's some of the look at some of our previous multiplayer type stuff that we've done. Like I say, I've liked them. I thought they were good fun. I just wish they got more views, because some of the recent series here with Black Ice have done great with views. Okay, we're all like that right away, and I want them to come over to here. Oh, yes. Oh, well, I think we should make an episode here and continue on. It's really hard to figure YouTube out. I think, again, talking to Ari last night, if YouTube were to promote my videos up, I think I would do rather well. Because I look at things like click-through rates on my videos and percentage watch times, which percentage out of an hour, a lot of people, an hour video, a lot of people are just watching 5 to 10 minutes of it. I truly know that. They don't watch, the majority of people do not watch the full video. But from some research, that is also the case for a lot of other, similar sort of content that gets a lot more views. And my click-through rate, meaning percentage of people seeing the thumbnail or whatever and clicking through, is actually rather high often. But compared to YouTube averages, it's rather high. And for some reason, things don't go so well. I think a lot of it has to do, I think my channel, I think they don't promote it because I talk a lot about history and using historical things like Nazis, and I'm not going to try avoid saying it, and Hitler and all that stuff. I think partly it's just algorithms like that. And I also think maybe conspiratorially is that I have a conservative, right-wing viewpoint, whatever you want to call it. And that's a no-no on YouTube. So I'm not sure on that, but I'm pretty damn sure on using proper historical terms. Even though I'm not advocating any of these things, I'm much more of a, classical American type conservative, which was the opposite of Nazis and fascists and communists. But maybe it's just because I'm not so pro-communist. I don't know. Who knows? So, all right. Yes. Episode. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here, and we are going to be playing Hearts of Iron Black Ice. Hearts of Iron 4's Black Ice, I should say. Obviously, this is Hearts of Iron 4. And we're playing as Germany, and we're taking a look and learning still a lot about the sort of much more detailed economic situation here, with needing to deal with fuel and energy and all of that stuff. And hello, General Skaven, how you doing? And hello, Green Fury. How is your day going? Oh, let's see here. Just do we have... Okay. Well, right now we have... no, this one. That's what I wanted. Okay, these are our reserves in equipment. We don't have enough mountain warfare. We definitely don't have enough trucks. So what we're going to do is form some more divisions. The infantry divisions won't probably hurt us. But the panzers probably will. The mountain, for lack of equipment. Now again, for those playing, the historical divisions are not. It's an opt-in. It's not forced upon you. If you don't want to play them, you don't have to, by any means. And hello, Starstreak. What do you think about Joe Biden? I heard a lot of Americans hate him now. Well, I've never liked Joe Biden. I don't know how many people hate him. I think he is an old man who is not mentally fully there anymore. I think that would be a relatively accurate statement.
Ausrücken!
Well, let's let the clock roll. Yes. Form the unit. Now that we've formed these units, let's slow this down just a little bit. And pause it, yes. Reclaiming the Sudeten land. Okay, demand the Sudeten land. We're going to demand the Sudeten land here. Yes. Okay, so we've gotten that. And just as I start making an episode, I get a message. Okay. Following people and what. Okay, that sounds good. Right. Okay. Okay. Sorry for that interruption, everyone. Okay. We just picked up the Sudeten land, and that is over here. We can press, no, we're not going to do this. We can get the first Vienna award, 16 days. Pushing down towards the fate of Czechoslovakia. What I'm thinking... Well, 35 days, 56 days. We'll go do 35 days first. Now, we have, let's just check up here. God, I still hate the state mechanic. We've gotten 2 more civil factories. And over here we've got, wow. We got 5 military and another civil factory. And here, 2 more civilian factories. So we just made out really well with the Sudetenland. Okay, well, we just did see here, and we formed a bunch more divisions, but mountain warfare equipment and trucks are heavily needed. So I think that is where we should, well, yeah, where we should. Focus our production on. Okay, we're going to go all the way to 3 to mountain warfare. Hopefully get it up and producing, and then cut back, shall we say, to 2. Okay, we're also going to jump to the latest Emil model of fighters. Okay, we need more steel. Well, let's get 2 factories worth. Norway. We're going to let unit, division.
Bereit! Ausrücken!
These guys
Bereit!
press into our new territory to
Achtung!
make the Czechs nervous.
Angetreten! Ausrücken!
There we go, just a little bit of pushing in on them. And we also, all right, this was, I think this was it consumer electronics? Okay, well, the computing machine. If you're going to do these, and I recommend doing them if you're a major nation, then do them early, because they will benefit all the other research. The Irish trade war. All of these divisions, let's see how we're doing with stuff still. I know we would be down there. Oh, light vehicles, we also have to do those. These hopefully will catch up on soon. Yeah, we have a lot of political power. Those who have not watched the entire series will know that at the start, I gave Germany a lot of political power to make changes to make it more historical as I saw fit, and partially to fill some of these blank things. But I don't know right now where, if any of these things, we should change. I don't think we should so much. We're going to be needing to organize up do heat ammunition early. This is diesel. We're doing mostly that. Get regular gasoline engines. This one, I think here. well, okay, we don't have the Czech technology for that. Don't have anti-tank upgrade for that. Anti-tank upgrade, which... Oh, let me see that. Okay, well... I guess we'll just do the Kubelwagen. Yes, but first we need to come here and that. Then this is what I want to get rid of. Okay. No, you're not building any of that? Oh, no, they're up here at the top. Okay. Yes. We're going to go with the D model. Yeah. GTA 6. Not my type of game. The Lima Conference. What is the Lima Conference? The Lima Conference held in Lima, Peru. Wow. Man, they got that. They were lucky. I mean, if they hadn't held it in Lima, Peru, the Lima Conference wouldn't have made so much sense. All right. Concludes with the adoption of the Declaration of American Solidarity. Representatives from American states gather to reaffirm their commitment to shared principles and values that unite them as a continent. The Declaration emphasizes the spiritual unity achieved through Republican institutions, a resolute desire for peace, a profound sense of humanity and tolerance. Boy, what a lot of BS this is, if you look at the actual history. And an unwavering adherence to the principles of international law, equal sovereignty of the states, and individual liberty without religious or racial bias. Conference recognized that respect for the personality, sovereignty, and independence of each American state is vital for maintaining international order and continual solidarity. It builds upon previous declarations and agreements, including those of Inter-American Conference for the Maintenance of Peace in Buenos Aires, which endorses the principles of inter-American solidarity and cooperation. In addition to the Declaration of American Solidarity, the conference issues a Declaration of American Principles. This declaration emphasizes the pressing need to uphold fundamental principles in the international relations, emphasizing the preservation of world order under the rule of law, the pursuit of peace with justice. Oh boy, this is so much bullshit if you look at real history. And not that this wouldn't be a nice thing, but just and the advancement of social and economic well-being for humanity. Lima Conference serves as a significant milestone in the strengthening of bonds between American nations, fostering cooperation and promoting the shared values of peace, justice, and prosperity throughout the continent. Wow. Wow. Hello, Crispin. How you doing? Good day to you, too. Okay. This is just Triggered Gamer. And I think it's worth talking about. I know I'm supposed to be playing World War II right now, but first off, and I know one of the viewers is currently live is from Latin America. I'm trying to figure out how to say some of this correctly. national power or power of each nation obviously is not equal. You know, um, Denmark is stronger than Liechtenstein, but maybe not San Marino. But no, that's a bit of a joke. San Marino has some tough Marines, but they're a really small unit. So yes, you're never going to have equality between nations. That's another thing. Is China goes on and on about unequal treaties, unequal treaties. There's never been an equal treaty in the history of mankind. Between nations is what we're talking about, of any sort, even peace treaties or defense treaties or whatever. There's always various national powers. A lot of, and sometimes when governments speak about things, their audience is the domestic audience. Hello, MMDB, how you doing? Is a domestic audience. So they're what they're saying is a lot of bullshit. They don't necessarily mean it, but they want to blame the problems of their nation on some external factors. Other times, it's not necessarily it is not a domestic. It is an international, whether international to governments or international people that complain. One of the big complaints, and we're talking about Latin America here, and Arno is here. Hello, Arno. Is American, and they mean United States of America, interference in Latin America, and the Monroe Doctrine. That was, and I don't know all the details of it right off the top of my head, but that was by President Monroe, which was, at the time, America was way too weak to enforce it. But the idea that they were going to keep non-American powers from getting conquests or getting more and more influence in the Americas. At the time, it was, of course, focused greatly on Europe. Now, of course, there have been, France and Britain's invasion of Mexico and whatnot. So, again, that was happened during the American Civil War when America didn't have the power to block it. Now, to all Latin American viewers, whoever happened to watch this or whatnot, be grateful. Be grateful for the Monroe Doctrine, because for all of you, pick at whatever nation who, and whatever, whether it's the faction that's in charge in the nation at whatever moment of time, or if it's a other other faction, that you wish that, oh, hey, you could get support from Russia or the Soviet Union during the Cold War, or oh, hey, right now in a modern sense, China will build roads and power plants in Peru or someplace like that. And if the U.S. is running around blocking some of this influence, and you would like to use it as a counterbalance to American or United States influence, for whatever reasons, and they're not external reasons, whatever reasons your nations aren't doing well, Latin America, and I would say collectively, especially that they've took one of the jewels of Latin America, Venezuela, and turned it into one of the biggest shitholes in Latin America. And we're going to get to some of this stuff here soon. That the reason whatever the reasons there are that you're not doing well, and I would say that they're all internal. And yes, it comes from the colonial experience of primarily Spain, but yes, I also know, Portugal in the case of Brazil, and yeah, I know France and the Dutch and the British too in some places. But There's colonial legacy, absolutely, but the reason you're not doing well is of internal reasons, and it isn't because of sabotage of the U.S. or something else. The U.S. is protecting, or has been as much as they can, has been protecting Latin America, has been trying to have stability in Latin America. I know it may not feel that way, but it really is a situation where and yes, you can go, oh, but gamer, this thing bad America did, and that thing bad America did. Yeah, yeah, supporting the United Fruit Company in its domination of places in the banana republics, as they sort of came to me, like the Dominican Republic. Yeah, it's not nothing is 100% good. We're not saying that. At least I'm not saying that. But overall, it's a positive because look at what this Lima conference bullshit. Well, around this time, in the 1930s, you had a Ecuadorian-Peruvian war. You had the Chaco War, which was Bolivia versus Paraguay. Jump back a bit before that, you had a Bolivia versus, what was it, Chile, trying to get I don't know, was Peru involved too? Sorry, I forget. Bolivia's attempt to get some coastline, wars. And you now have basically Venezuela declaring that roughly half of what on this map is British Guyana, but Guyana, claiming that and is threatening to militarily invade. They've, in the recent past, Venezuela gave up any claims to this territory. Recent past as in since World War II, I do believe. And it isn't until they found a bunch of oil sitting off of what would be Guyanan coastal territory that they cared about it. It's oil, it's greed. And the U.S., you can talk about the U.S. influences. Some of the stuff, this Lima conference bullshit that was going on, of peace, justice, and prosperity. Now, I'm not against the idea of peace, lack of war between nations. That's a good thing. Justice, if you're talking about not social justice, but actual justice, because social justice is the opposite of justice. And prosperity, we're not talking, about equality or whatever other bullshit, prosperity. Yeah, that's all good, and I think the U.S. would want to promote that. And if you look at particularly during the Cold War, you had what would be a European supplied and supported insurgencies in many nations, obviously famously in places like Cuba, Nicaragua, El Salvador, but others Colombia had with FARC, and Peru, Sendero Luminoso, and other guerrilla movements that the local nations could have easily handled if it weren't for communists supporting the guerrilla movements from outside. Because I say communist, I mean Soviet Union, China. The Soviet Union is doing a lot of them. Sendero Luminoso, I believe, is mainly a Chinese-supported element. So yes, that then invites, whether it's the Monroe Doctrine or others, invites American interference. And sometimes that interference is benevolent, and sometimes it's not entirely. I know that. But, the question comes down to is, when is it justified to interfere with others' behavior? And we're talking other nations. When is it justified, interfere with other nations? And I would say at one point or another, all of the Latin American nations have gladly accepted United States aid. And aid on that scale comes with strings, conditions. So, I don't know, Arno. I should only have sort of kind of one. Oh, well, maybe it's one is crisis report. Also has a rumble thing that you may be seeing. I don't know, Arno. So, and some country like Guyana now is basically going, help me, help me, help me, help me, protect us from Venezuela, because of course they have neglected their armed forces, and their country is not the most industrialized large power out there, obviously. And so they're going, help me, help me, help me. Well, okay, that's not a bad idea of helping them out because from a neighboring bully nation. But then you're going to get other nations around them going, oh, American interference. And 20 years from now, after we've helped them and we're like going, hey, yeah, we want you to do X, Y, and Z, whatever that may be, that's the strings that are attached, and they don't like it. So, yeah, and I know, General Skaven here is our Latin American, and he can have his opinions, whether he agrees with me or disagrees with me on a lot of these subjects. But I've heard a lot about this because my political science university, the head of the political science department was a Latin American specialist, and, very much coming from a Latin American perspective and not a United States perspective on what was good. So, okay, Arno, well, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll look into it some other time. So, yeah, so I may have a bit of a, chip on my shoulder about complaints about things on Latin America. But with this sort of, the combination of the brewing war of Venezuela here, and I do know that Brazil also, has some sort of border dispute with Guyana too. But that, I think, is something sort of like a little bit of this territory here or some such thing. That's more of just, I think, a dispute of where should the border be out in some jungle that is unimproved area. And some of these borders are, shall we say, bullshit. Because they're just basically on the map and between the drug. And yes, I know the drug problem is not all America, because I know drugs go into Europe and other places too. But America is, of course, a big customer for drugs. The drugs and other revolutionary movements have sort of make these borders somewhat bullshit out here in the rainforest. And then you get Argentina, return the Falklands to us. They never had it. Spain never had it. Argentina never had it. Oh, yeah, it did for however many days until Britain took it back, yes. But just because it's off the coast of Argentina doesn't mean, is it just because, I don't know, I'm trying to think. Does Madagascar belong to Mozambique because it's off the coast of Mozambique? Or do the Comoros Islands belong to Mozambique because it's off the coast of Mozambique? Or does it belong to Madagascar because it's off the coast of Madagascar? And even if these were continued, I know they're sort of independent today, but even if these were to continue to be a colonial or, European power, does that make them belong to some onshore entity? No, no, it doesn't. That just um, Australia should belong to New Zealand in that case. Yes, Star Streak, or vice versa. Now that is a little bit further away, um, but we can see, the mere fact that an island off the coast somewhere. Does Singapore really belong to Malaya? You know, it's a bullshit thing. And here, Socotra here, which has some really weird plants on it, should it belong to Somalia because it's much closer to Somalia than it is to Yemen, which is in the middle of civil war, but so is Somalia. Oh, I mean, they're both in the middle of civil war. So Indonesia should belong to Australia. Yeah, and so that's the bullshit case. There is no, and people have looked into this. There has been, there very well might have been a Spanish ship, and some guy comes off the Spanish ship at some date with a flag and says this belongs to the Habsburg Empire or something. 500 years ago, that something like that might have happened, but that is not. But there was never a persistent Spanish colony, let alone a post-Napoleonic era Argentinian, post Simon Bolivar. See, I know about these things. I've studied this. Simon Bolivar. That's where you get Bolivia from. The name of the country. His throwing off Spanish rule at the end of the Napoleonic Wars. It's never even since then. So it's never been Argentinian. It's never been Latin, and that it's always been an English-speaking possession and habitation. And there is, to my knowledge, again, we don't know everything, but to my knowledge, there was no prior human habitation. This is not like some of the Pacific islands out here that have small populations on them. It was never inhabited by humanity prior to that. So there is no claim of Argentina as there. And they really, I know the president. What's his name? He seems like a pretty cool guy, sort of a weird guy. What's his name right there? I think he's just making those statements just to appease the militarists and not really planning on retaking back the Falklands for Argentina. But and there really is, other than quote unquote national pride, the only thing that they're really worried about, I think, is potentially oil offshore, because this really isn't that much of an economic boon, and all the people are basically English, and there's probably not that many Argentinians that, if they were allowed to, would want to move there. So I don't think it's like that kind of thing. Okay, and Star Trek, the Maori would object very strongly to that. Yeah, well, we would see. Hi, Jetin. Just watched a good movie about nation building. It's on YouTube if you're interested. Well, maybe sometime. The only way for Venezuela to invade Guyana is by land, is through Brazil. Yeah, I don't know right offhand, Skaven, the terrain. I know it is very jungly around here. I've met, I don't want to overstate it, met a few people who, back during the Cold War, when Suriname was in the communist sphere, were dealing with some anti-communist type rebels there, and hearing about the conditions of moving around, mostly by river. Because they weren't able to use the few roads that existed in Suriname. So, yeah, it's pretty rough territories as far as I know. The Ugly American, English full movie, adventure drama thriller. Okay, interesting. Yeah, they object to everything. Based on U.S. Burma after World War II. Okay, yeah. in a way the Amazon jungle presents some of the wars. Yes, absolutely. And this is what I'm saying is this sort of neat line drawn on a map, and then you get into the realities of the jungle along here. The border ain't so clean. It's pretty rough. And it's a Marlon Brando movie. Venezuelans bold enough to do it anyways. Well, I don't know, and NMDB, since we're still on Venezuela and Guyana, I don't know how much, because, I think it's something like a third, literally a third of Venezuelans have fled Venezuela because the conditions are so bad there. And so those that are, you lose a third of your population, and of course, way too many have come up to the United States. You lose a third of your population, which doesn't like the government. That doesn't mean the other 2/3 like the government. It just means that the 2/3 that are left, maybe the 1/3 that likes the government, is now in a stronger position. Venezuela was one of the economic jewels in Latin America. They have a fair amount of oil as it is. That they have, by nationalizing, they get money. And now the United States have recently lessened the sanctions against Venezuela oil because of our sanctions against Russian oil to sort of make up for that. But I don't know how much of it is just to try to rally support for the government, which I think is only in power because of revolutionary military force and not because of general consensus of the population. So yeah, it's a situation in which is rough. Let's see. Hello, ship commander. They fled to neighboring. I know a lot of them are in Colombia, but a lot have come north. That is what I was thinking. The economic is on the toilet, and now the leader is asking for the population to die for oil. Pretty much, who has the guns and the power? Absolutely, because they've given to they've handed out guns and authority to a lot of the poor people who don't have much in Venezuela, and that's always the case in any country, but it's often starker in Latin American countries. U.S. needs to intervene. Well, I think it would not be for the best for the U.S. to put ground forces into Guyana. I think if Gamer was president, well, first I would probably have long ago, you do know, people, that there is no American law against assassinating foreign leaders. There is only a presidential directive to American intelligence agencies to not assassinate foreign leaders, whether it's the actual people in power or opposition leaders, without the president's approval. Because back in the 60s or whatever, the local CIA chief, whether it was in Iran or in somewhere in Latin America, might get into their heads to assassinate a foreign leader, and without checking with higher authority. Just you can get a sniper in there to take out that bad guy, do it, kind of thing. And oh shit, this causes big ramifications. Well, so they put this presidential directive, I forget which one it is, not to do that without the U.S. president, without asking the U.S. president for permission. Because it is, in essence, an act of war, even if the guy who's pulling the trigger may be a person from the local country, so it just, but still sort of set up by the U.S. I don't think the UK would abandon a Commonwealth country. Okay, well, Skaven, is Guyana still in the Commonwealth? It very well may be. So let's see. Bush Senior conversation inbound. No. Okay, so I might very well have taken out not the bus driver Mundero, taken out the communist. I'm blanking on the name. I'm picturing his face. Venezuela attacks. It's suicide. CIA history. Yeah, homogeneous can of worms in there. Oh, humongous can of worms. Yes. Yeah. What? Okay. So I very well in the past may have taken out some leaders, but looking at the situation today and Guyana, if I were the U.S. president, I would be sending some ships right now off the shore of Guyana because of. I would not send a proper carrier, a big carrier, just because they're all busy either facing off China or other parts of the world. We are sort of stretched thin at the moment. But I would put at least a few warships off the coast, maybe an LHA, the sort of, helicopter carrier, maybe one of them. But I would definitely put some ships off the coast. And as Skaven says, he says the only way for Venezuela to get to Guyana is through Brazil. Yeah, someone could look up Google Maps and see if there's any roads or whatnot. I just don't know right off the top of my head. But I would put that in a put some ships off there to say you're not going to be using the sea to get to Guyana. Remember, this is part of the United States up here, Puerto Rico. So we are in the neighborhood. Oh, we also have is it here? We have some U.S. Virgin Islands and whatnot here, but I think maybe something down here, but I'm not sure. So we are in the area. Yes, and so that I would be talking to my British allies about scheduling a joint training mission between Guyanan forces. If I was president today, and we're looking at this, understanding what's going on in the world, like, oh shit, I got dropped into this, because it wouldn't be as bad if I had been president up to this point. But if I was dropped into this, I would be putting some U.S. vessels off of here. I would be asking Britain to do a joint training mission of some sort of ground forces down here in Guyana, whether it's the British SAS or just some other infantry battalions, or maybe have them send some Gurkhas down there as for a joint training mission, and just keep it as joint training. And I would maybe schedule whether it's a joint naval and Navy and Air Force air training mission somewhere in this vicinity. Not necessarily right at the border of Venezuela. This is the Dutch down here, Curacao. And so with all of that going on, I think this just stays talk. Oh yeah, we could. Well, with air refueling, yeah, we can fly cap over here. Now, if with all of that going on, if Venezuela does invade, I would not put U.S. ground forces in there. I would again try to encourage Britain to maybe actually send some ground forces in there. Um, Maybe Britain could send one of its two carriers. I think only one of it is operational because one of them broke, and I don't know that they've got it fixed yet. But down here, but I would mostly keep, and I might send some. I know we've sent all of our munitions and equipment to Ukraine, but maybe we could scrape up some, not like high tech equipment, but just some equipment to reinforce Guyana, just to sort of show Venezuela that if they were to do it, the U.S. would stop a naval invasion. The U.S. very well might shoot down any Venezuelan aircraft over Guyana, whether from ships, because they have a lot of surface-to-air missiles, or from aircraft. You know, we do have a nice little friend down here in Grenada. Yeah, Grenada really likes us. That we could also, and they have a really nice air base that some Cubans started and we finished way back. If you know the story of that. So yeah, we can. Oh, and trust me, this is Trinidad and Tobago down here. Trinidad is here. Tobago is up here. But Grenada, I think, is this one or this one. Sorry if I'm not 100% on all these, but I'm pretty sure it's that one. Grenada, yeah, is something of a U.S. puppet, but also watching stuff with Venezuela, Grenada knows that it might be next. So they would definitely allow refuel basing, simple basing of U.S. aircrafts off there, even whether the Dutch would want us to base off of Curacao or not. I think we would readily be able to stop any invasion down here and whatnot. And so it's a minor thing. Guyana is still a member of the Commonwealth. Thanks, IKB. I wasn't absolutely sure on that. Maybe put some local poor ships like the Dutch frigate and British. Yeah, quite possibly you could send some of those. The Netherlands annex Venezuela. Yeah, right. There are British. Well, that would be again, and this is what the Monroe Doctrine says. Now, we don't have to follow it, but the Monroe Doctrine does not want to see expansion of non-American powers. Again, originally it was focused obviously on Europe, but in the modern day sense, China or some other place may be trying to influence. So we don't want to see the Dutch getting any more power or the British getting any more power. But if Guyana is still a Commonwealth nation, that would say the British, they can intervene to support them. They should not be allowed to annex Venezuela or something. So there are British and Dutch Marines in the area which can help also Dutch. Yes, absolutely. Hello, amazing. Yes, the Lima conference, a lot of bullshit. Yes, how you doing, amazing? So yeah, and so we're looking at this, and I had somebody ask me, I forget who it was recently, but I think the reason a lot of these wars are happening is because the perceived American weakness, one, and two, I think this is, I'm pretty damn sure a lot of these nations perceive America as weak. And two, the perception now, I think this is the perception that governments are making, is that nuclear weapons are off the table. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I do know that from my training back in ROTC days, and one of my training officers prior to being, a teacher in college. Meaning he was a full-time United States Army officer, but teaching in ROTC. But his previous job had been in Europe, commanding a missile battery in Germany. The Lance missile is, the theater range nuclear missile. So he was commanding a nuclear missile battery in Germany, and they were very much under the idea that he was going to be shooting his nuclear missiles at invading Warsaw Pact forces at some point, if the war was to break out, because he did not believe the NATO forces were going to be strong enough in conventional power to stop the Soviet advance, if you will, and that they weren't just going to abandon the missiles in place. They were mobile missiles or something, and just let them be turned over to the Soviet Union and just keep that a conventional war. So he was very much, he was going to be shooting theater range missiles into either East Germany or into recently occupied parts of West Germany, focusing, on Soviet armored battalions or not battalions, divisions, and nuking them. And so the perception was that, and then if that was going to maybe be happening locally, well, maybe the Soviet Union would be, oh shit, we're being shot at locally. Well, then let's press the big button and launch them all against the U.S. And the U.S. would be thinking, oh shit, if we use local nukes, they're going to use nukes. So we better just start out using the big nukes, first strike. That was very much the thought during the Cold War. China at the time had a stated policy, and I do believe it was their actual policy, of no first strike with nuclear weapons, because one, they really didn't have a lot of global missiles, being able to, at the time, to be able to really wage a good global war. And if we were to retarget our, I don't know how difficult it was, but retarget our missiles on China and strike them, it would do really bad. And I think China mostly just wanted its nuclear missiles so that we wouldn't nuke them, that they could strike back. And they thought that they were strong enough, especially in a post-Korean War era, that they were strong enough that they could defend their nation conventionally, so they didn't need to use nukes to defend their nation, just as a, if you nuke us, we'll nuke you kind of thing. And so it was mainly, and otherwise that they would sit out a big global nuclear war. Because, hey, if everyone else nukes themselves, then only China will be left. But now with what's happening in Ukraine and other conflicts even before then, I think we're seeing nations go, man, nuclear weapons are off the table. We're willing to roll the dice on other wars. And so I think we're seeing a lot of wars break out because of that. I know there were a lot of wars during the Cold War. But I think sort of globally, there has been a nuclear peace. Because as Pakistan and India have gotten more nuclear weapons, there at least seems to be less, and hear my words carefully, less conventional wars between Pakistan and India. Now, there's still the conflict in the Kashmir, and there's still periodic Islamic terrorists that are maybe directed by or maybe slightly supported by the Pakistani government. I don't know how much Pakistan supporting all of these different actions. There's still, minor fighting going on, but it's not been, out and out wars. So I think we've been seeing a nuclear peace, but I think, again, people are thinking nuclear weapons are not as likely to be used. So, yeah, I think that's why we're having all this war. And hello, Hagimas Spipogairos. I'm Sure, I'm butchering that. Don't mean to. Hello, yes. The Royal Dutch Navy flexing its no. Starstreak. It's not the Royal Dutch Navy flexing its muscles. It's the Royal Dutch Fleet flexing its muscle, singular. There's only one muscle left in the Royal Dutch Fleet. They don't have muscles anymore. They just have a muscle. The only road and plane place to Guyana close to Venezuela is through the state of Romana, the Brazilian state close. Yeah, and if that's the case, I don't think we're going to see Venezuela attack through Brazil, especially if Brazil moves some troops into the region. Both are okay. They are currently operational. Great, IKB, because I know one of them had a propeller shaft problem a while ago, and I just hadn't been keeping up on whether they got it fixed yet. So Brazil, okay, good. So if they're there, so I think this is likely as much just rhetoric. Local regime is doing poorly. Let's blame some foreigners for our poorness, and let's rally the people around a cause that is bullshit, I think, as much as anything else. Yarn has flown over South American cities as an intimidation tactics. Boy, I should learn to speak. Actually, I'm sort of dry-mouthed at the moment. Something here. Yeah, and I know Venezuela has, in the last 20 years, have picked up a lot of conventional military equipment. But the mere fact that they bought it, and they probably got it in good condition, doesn't mean it's still running. It could be, but I don't know. So, yeah, this is probably a lot of hot air over Guyana, Venezuelan Guyana. Now, obviously, while we're looking at wars around the world, you have Hamas going into active military operations against Israel and is losing badly because of it. You have Iran using the Israel conflict there, attacking the United States through their Houthi allies, so-called. I don't know if you guys are aware, but United States naval vessels, United States ships, I believe, and definitely ships flagged from other nations that may or may not have some person with Israeli ownership as part owner of the vessel. If you look into the shipping world, it's sort of murky as to who's owning it, who's chartering it, who's building the ship, but have been attacked by drones, shall we say, from somewhere in Yemen. And there's a sort of permanently stationed or long-term stationed Iranian ship sitting out here, and it's been sitting out here for months and months and months. Out here, that's probably sending intelligence to the Yemenis for their attacks. I am sure, I don't necessarily have the direct knowledge, but I am sure that the drones are made in Iran, and Iran actually is making drones that are being used by Russia against Ukraine. They actually make some decent drones. And I'm also pretty damn sure that the guy who's operating, or maybe standing behind the operator of those drones, is an Iranian. So Iran is using a proxy because it doesn't believe the U.S. will strike at them, and they're striking at U.S. vessels. Now, they haven't hit any U.S. vessels in any of these things, but there's been missiles that have been coming danger close, or whatever shall we say, whether their trajectory or path would have actually put them into a U.S. vessel, or just simply flying so near it that the U.S. vessel wasn't going to allow it, and so shoots them down, meaning it may have got the U.S. vessels, I forget the name of the destroyer, but there's like a cargo ship or bulk carrier, tanker, doesn't matter what, but whatever has been coming through here. And yes, the U.S., been coming through the center of the Red Sea here. And yes, the U.S. vessel very well may have positioned itself in between the coast and this other vessel. And the missiles or, drones or whatever, suicide drones, whatever, in essence, cruise missiles, very well may have just been sort of overflying the American vessel um, but and get shot, but they get too close and get shot down. Now there have been using more ballistic targeted vessels targeting some U.S. ships out here. So yeah, that's all going on because the U.S. is perceived weak. The whole Ukraine war is because perceived weak. More and more attacks on Filipino vessels, and now these attacks are mostly coming from water cannon, but water cannon that are super powerful for putting out fires on ships from actually small ships. These Coast Guard vessels that the Chinese are using are small ships that are potentially deadly. And an attack, I think it was up in here, on an Australian naval vessel by a Chinese vessel. And which, what's Australia do? Nothing. But yeah, they the Chinese fired on a Australian vessel. They didn't fire a ballistic missile, but they fired a sonar wave or sonar waves. You just say sonar. Well, they were divers off the vessel clearing a net that got tangled in the propeller, and they were very close, turning on their sonar at full power, which can be deadly to divers in the water that close. Now, if it's 20, 30 miles away, it's nothing. But when it's that close, because they were right up near the situation. I mean, coming very, very close to the situation, and then turning on their sonar, which which was an attack against the Australian vessel and the crew. Dutch Navy currently has 4 modern AI defense frigates, 2 standard frigates, 4 submarines, several dozen other ships. That said, 2 submarines are inoperable, and 2 of the air defense frigates are in dry dock. Yeah, it's a muscle. It's just one muscle. Yeah, all that equals one muscle. That said, the Dutch air defense frigates are on of the few in Europe who can intercept missiles in outer space. Okay, so they can have high altitude. Oh, and I know we've been off the topic of World War II for a long time. On the topic of attacking U.S. ships here and out here by drones and other ballistic type missiles, I believe these are being done as much to test drones against the U.S. Navy, because we have seen with the Moskva being sunk by Ukraine forces and other Russian vessels being sunk by Ukraine forces using various types of drones. I think it's a test to see how how effective those type of attacks might be against the U.S. Navy. And we're seeing none get anywhere near damaging the U.S. vessels. What was I forget the name of the destroyer that was damaged way back in, I think it was the port of Aden or something way back when. And that was a suicide bomber in the middle of the port that was on a boat that got too close and blew a hole in the side of the vessel. Didn't sink the vessel, did, $1 billion worth of damage or something, but killed some American sailors. But forget what port they were in. Could have been up in the Gulf, I forget, but I thought it was Aden, but I don't know. But yeah, at sea, so far, we're not nearly as vulnerable as Russia is to drone attacks. I think a lot of what's going on here is an attempt on that. Well, on that note, I think we're going to keep these. This is somewhat short. I know, somewhat long already. So we're going to end the episode here. So I want to thank everyone. Hope it was an interesting look at Latin America, the Lima Conference, and of course, modern conflicts around the world. So thanks, everyone. See you next time for more. Yes, even more Hearts of Iron. Yep, we're going to continue here. Yeah, yeah, they're just slow cruise missiles. But also, I think some of the distinction may be compared. Well, it depends on the cruise missile you're talking about, but that it is remotely operated with some of this stuff. Yeah, the Cole. Thank you, Arno. Yes, it was the USS Cole that the attack was, and so that was in port, and they allowed the vessel because either and I don't remember the details. I think they didn't want to just randomly, because I do think there were people on deck with guns to shoot at. I think they were just nervous about shooting at local fishermen or whatever, and not wanting to be accused of just shooting some locals who got too close to an American vessel. But yeah, so far between several actions that have been going on, the U.S. vessels have been able to stop all of the various drones and other attacks against them. So, and we're not seeing the similar thing with Russia. So, whether it's crew training or equipment types, yeah, the U.S. Navy is not that vulnerable. One of the things they have been doing out here right now, I mean, maybe literally as I'm talking, or very within the last few days, they have one ship out here that is operating. I think it's three other, and they're slightly different types. One's they've released some footage of it. One sort of a targeting drone. Oh well, yeah, some of them are drones, but are AI, and they're remote/AI controlled. Not ships, but largish boats to launch missiles and attack. So like a manned command vessel with unmanned resources around it. So they're really beefing that stuff up. Moscow was barely functional. Yeah, IKB. Yeah, I don't know how much. And thank you for the link there, Arno. I don't know how much with Moscow the system wasn't being, crew wise, wasn't being maintained, worked on, or whether the crew didn't have it turned on, or whether the system was just bad. I don't know what it was. And yes, I did sort of hear that it may have not even been manned because they weren't worrying about a threat or something. I don't know. Um, but we're not seeing too much of that problem with the U.S. So the U.S. is doing better. All right, here. Well, let's take another drink. I'm going to actually go grab another Coke because I'm sort of dry mouth today. Before starting the next episode. So I'll be right back in just a minute. I just got to walk in the other room and come back. Almost already here. And let me switch this up here a bit. I know we've been using that, but before continuing with another episode here. And to hope the audio is still good here. I'm just switching over to my headphones. All right. So yes, I think you can still hear me well enough. All right. Okay. Well, let's make another episode here. get back to the Second World War. Excuse me, just burping here. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 coming at you from my secret mountain lair. So if my voice sounds a little different, I'm not on my normal computer, just on my laptop. But we're going to continue our playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4's Black Ice, which is turning out to be a very, very interesting mod here. Okay, we are not getting as much. We don't have. We barely moved the dial here. Okay, well, let's get iron ore from Spain. Yeah, let's do that. And let's see how that. Okay, so now we're at +5 in steel. That's what I wanted to get to. Okay, so
Achtung! Achtung!
let's
Angetreten!
create a military force of some sort here. Well, okay. Well, let me.
Befehle!
Yeah, that's that, guys.
Angetreten!
I think we're going to add them to here.
Angetreten!
Hey, Eric, how you doing? Oh,
Befehle!
no, wrong unit. Back to Guderian's unit. France and Britain announced an alliance because Germany work dinners. Oh, free food. Very good. Okay. Just about the 105, I think. Or well, maybe it was the heavy guns. I forget which one it was, but it doesn't matter. One of the artillery. We could do mountain artillery. We could do spotter planes. At the 1938. Got better reconnaissance equipment. Infantry weapons. Anti-tank weapons. So that's what I was thinking one of the other techs may need. That's not until 1950, and I don't necessarily want to push that far ahead, but we could do maybe better mortars here. That would be a good benefit. And yes, we can. Let's see about that. Artillery. Here we are. Yeah, let's do better field artillery here. I'm leaving these crappy light vehicles until we get the Kupel wagon in production. And what is okay? We're producing one more power plant. We're starting to use up power plants. And now I think we would be maybe not at full possible capacity, but we would be. No, we're not going to. Shay, and mentioning that, we can take a quick look at the war in China. Okay, Japan is doing fairly well. Actually, fairly well. So yes, we can zoom in and see the units if it really helps anybody. But get going there. Okay, now Transport trucks. Not more for equipment. Looks like we're catching up on. Hmm. Yeah. So I think more trucks. And for national focuses, resource industrial plan, which will open up all of this. So we gain a research slot. That's one of the reasons I wanted to come down here. There we get a bunch of military factories, just 28 days. 2 military factories, but still 35 days. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, it's just rubber, only down by 2. Yeah, we'll sell some infantry to back. Oh, the Stuka. Well, just got that. Yeah, let's do medium bombers. Yeah. All right, well, we can now produce more. We've gone back down to 80, but well, what do we know about here? Nothing really. Okay, because we're not really doing much. Well, now let's build some more military factories. We'll get those. Well, I want to do is make sure that we will have enough. So we need more aircraft manufacturing plants because we only have one more capacity there.
Achtung! Ausrücken!
Steel mill upgrades. That is over here, which was this is the one we did, which means more steel output per factory. Now, what we can see about doing is improve power plants, which would, instead of making more power plants, makes production capacity better. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's good. we will do that. Massive earthquake in Chile. Here. Okay, we can upgrade Liebstandard to Adolf Hitler. We can get Kutnikov there, and we can get Der Führer there, so more evil dudes. More evil dudes. Yes, just what we need. Okay, so now we see here, we have a regiment that is infantry with some artillery. Get some. And we have our headquarters garrison. So what we're going to do is group these two together, but we're going to send you out near the front. And we've gotten that Der Führer group. Ooh, that's maybe down here in the, yeah. We're going to add that to his command. Because this is, just a motorized infantry unit, which isn't so great, but ain't bad either. Having it. Okay, coal liquid. Ah, boy, coal. Man, I am dry mouth today. I think if I'm going to permanently move to my secret mountain base, I'm going to need a humidifier. Coal liquefaction. Yes, I can speak if I work at it hard enough. That was that one. Okay, improved catalytic cracking, oil extraction. But let's look over here. In 38, so we could do that. Dockyard output 10%. That's pretty big. So let's do that. Okay, still just down on rubber. Now, one thing we haven't done is built the west wall. And we're already in 39. Now, I think we should start back. I should just click here. Okay. We'll do that. Get at least 2 divisions. They're in development. Hopefully we have enough equipment for that. Autocannons. Just got that. So let's get better 110s. And industrial resource plan. Now, I think we need to do the west wall before it gets too late and things don't go so well. Okay, so now this is another. Another one here. Okay. Rations. Monthly population improvements. Oil extraction factor 8%. 7% on yeah, I think we'll do that. Moving radios. There. All right. Early radar. Yes, please. Engine production capacity. We're low. Okay. Well. Well. Let's take a quick look here. We've got a lot of trucks that need reducing, but we still need mountain warfare equipment. So what we're going to do here is let's find the trucks that I've heavily invested in more trucks trying to catch up. We're going to reduce that by 1. And then we're going to find mountain warfare equipment, which probably up here. There we are, and we're going to increase that because that should. Okay, and that also reduced our problem with rubber. Need a lot more anti-tank rifles, and we need a lot more radios still to get mobile battalions up with radios. No, we don't have any reason to embargo Ireland. We like Ireland. Ireland hates the British, so we like Ireland. Yay. Okay. You two guys come over to here.
Achtung! Ausrücken!
Let's see, is there any more? Okay. Yeah, it may put us in a deficit of equipment. Let's form those divisions now. Yeah. Well, now that we're in 39, very, very useful. I think we're going to go here, increase factory output. Well, engine factory. Now, let's take a quick look here. We're building the west wall. We will have this as a possibility here, 2 civilian factories, which are nice to build other factories. AA, 14 days, 28 days here. Artillery, military, and power plant, which is good. Down here, underground factories, which is maybe for later. We still have more coal or storage, power, liquefaction, expand Austrian oil. Right, we've yet to take over Czechoslovakia, so some of these are not yet available to us. Aircraft assembly. Okay, so I don't see, now there may be down here. an engine factory, but I don't see one. And yes, we very well likely should, in fact, because excuse me. Well, let's look here. Tatra, I think that's how you pronounce it. Tatra, yeah, something like that. Was a fairly major truck factory here. I would say that there should be a engine plant here, just because of this. But there was also some other Czech stuff, so that maybe needs an engine plant. That's one of the things that I've recently discovered some more infographic maps, that show resources and factories and things like that, that not necessarily are new information to game developing researchers, but just other information that made some really nice aerodynamic cars as well. Yeah, the Czechs did. I'm forgetting the company. It wasn't. I don't think it was Tatra. It was one of the others. But yeah, those, yes, they made engines, and of course they made engines for the 35T and the 38T tanks, and they made engines for their aircraft because there was a domestic aircraft industry that was pretty good. So there should be some engine plants for Czechoslovakia. But I'm saying specifically over in this area, and Germany did pick it up as part of getting the Sudetenland. It was Tatra, and I do believe they produced their own engines, and not, produced it out of some other factory and shipped them in for assembly work. But I'm not absolutely sure on that point. But that's the problem when you introduce something new, like, look, guys, I think this is wonderful. Please, this, and I know I've mentioned some of this stuff many years ago. I don't know that they have watched some of my other videos. My sort of vision of this is getting very, very, very close to my sort of vision of a grand strategy game that I had way, way, way back. I mean, back like in the 90s or earlier, of how I would have done it. And very much had things like engine, because engines, and whether you would have broken them up with aircraft, and for the Americans with tanks as well, radial engines versus inliner engines, but just simply engines. Now, unfortunately, with this game here, and this is, subtitles, what did they get right? What did they get wrong? They're getting a lot of things right, people. So don't think that I'm, hitting on them hard. Okay, well, it doesn't look like these are using here. Now, I know the Germans used diesel engines for their submarines, and they used diesel engines maybe even for their, I think, for their big ships as well. But these engines, as opposed to, just so you know, I think most American and British vessels, destroyers and whatnot, were steam engines, actually, but they were oil-based steam engines, and they were turbine, not the reciprocating steam engines. They were turbine steam engines, and they used fuel oil, which is can literally be oil out of the ground, but it will dirty up the engines, and you got to literally climb inside and scrape the engines off fairly routinely if you're burning some of the crude oil coming out of the ground. Ah, wow, Don Ramirez, thank you so much for the super chat. Don Ramirez, €6. Thank you so much. Yes, okay, yeah. Skoda Auto. Yes, but thank you. Do appreciate that. And thank you, Jetin, for manufacturers in Prague, Skoda Auto, Capitan, Gordon Roadster. Yeah, some of those are a bit more newer, 1992, 2000. Yeah, but yeah, so you have Skoda, Otto, and um, whatnot there. So yeah, so you have some, and but these engines, oh, so um, yeah, that's great. Thanks, Don Ramirez. Thank you um, so much for that. All right, so the way that they're building is and the steam turbine engines they set up with a both capture the steam and turn it back into water, as well as desalinate salt water, which provides water for both the steam engine on the, whether it was on a carrier or on a destroyer, but also water for the crew as well. And they were burning, again, fuel oil. Where the Germans were, for a lot of their surface vessels, I don't know if it's universal, but for a lot of them, they're running large diesel engines. So you got to have diesel, and they are sort of, a internal combustion engine as opposed to heating up steam. So, but those engines are being built, and they're so large and in such a way they're not competing with building engines for trucks, building engines for tanks, building engines for aircraft. Um, the American Sherman and the American Stuart light tanks were using aircraft engines, um, literally, so that they're competing. Do you build more Shermans, or do you build more, whatever DC-3s or whatever were using the same engines? I forget right offhand. Now, of course, American industrial capacity was such that they built there really was not a shortage of engines. With Germany, you do have that condition. So the idea of having military plants that are, shall we say, dealing with a combination of assembly work, but also basic construction in that welding of frames or pressing of auto body parts, because your fender, your hood, your cab on your cars are really easy to make, but they take a very big engine uh, of a pressing engine to stamping, if you will, engines, if however you want to call them, machines, engines that stamp those out. But those are also the same things, smaller ones generally speaking, but would be, and you can make reasonable size parts too, stamping out helmets or canteens or other sorts of stamp military equipment. So yeah, you have that, but then you have specialty stuff that are producing engines. Tank assembly, aircraft assembly, yeah, those also come in as specialty equipment. Now, artillery barrels, again, here, you have monster artillery barrels for railway artillery and, on ships. But general artillery barrels is another bottleneck thing that really can put down, is because you can look at all those 88 millimeter anti-aircraft guns, and Germany spams out huge amounts of those, often with rather simple amounts for air defense of the factories and cities and bridges and whatever, internally in Germany. That all of those barrels could have easily have been made in 105 millimeter artillery barrels, or 75 millimeter anti-tank barrels, or 88 millimeter barrels that are used as dual purpose on the front lines, either as anti-aircraft or anti-tank things. But also those barrels are also being put into tanks. So and of course smaller ships are using small, destroyers and frigate class are using some of the similar sorts of barrel production. So the idea of having barrel production, engine production, and then some sort of specialty productions of tanks and aircraft, as opposed to just general, because the machines that make a machine gun barrel or a rifle barrel cannot be readily turned into making artillery barrels. So this whole idea is really excellent. The real question is whether it's through national focuses or through civ factories, have they been readjusted to be able to make what was made historically, or other, and other types of adjustments like that. And I just don't know how well um, that has been, shall we say, balanced into the game. The idea of this is wonderful, and they are mostly getting it right. But it's still, stuff. IKB, the pocket battleships like the Grosspray had diesels. Yes. Surface Raiders had diesels also. Okay, thank you, IKB. Yeah, I thought so. So Germany is going down the diesel. I don't know if you call them their internal combustion engines. I should say. So they're doing diesel engines there. Some of the stuff with everybody, people out there understand. I know a shit ton about World War II, but there's more about World War II out there that I don't know than I do. So I'm not claiming to know everything. I know a lot. So I can sort of extrapolate. I do know the Americans were running diesel engines for their submarines. I think just about everybody else was as well. Sometimes on some of the submarines, I believe that diesel engine would power the propellers. But mostly, and I believe for just about all of the American submarines, the diesel engines purely powered an electrical engine, and then that electrical engine is powering the propellers, and that is done because you're also diverting electrical power to the battery. So when you shut the engine off, you're having only one type of engine engaging that propeller shaft. So even though you're having two sort of engines working there, it is still better to do that and have just one, the electrical engine, engaging the propeller shaft. Now, for like the motor torpedo boats for the Americans, they were using basically aircraft engines, if you will, but not. They were, like I say, basically, in that they were set up to be water cooled, and so they would actually use seawater to cool the engines. They're marine engines set up as that, but they were using aviation fuel. Now they could run on standard gasoline. I don't know if they could run on diesel, but they could run on standard gasoline, and they just wouldn't perform as well. They'd still get up and zip around a bit, but they weren't the performance levels that you would get out of aviation fuel. So that's why I say basically aviation type engines, in that they're using aviation fuel and they're set up to run like that. But I think, well, it depends on some of the aircraft, but they're pretty big engines, and they're sort of marine aviation engines, if you will. And I don't know what the Germans were using, or the British were using for their motor torpedo boats, or the Italians, because you can get a diesel engine going pretty quick. And so I just don't know the technologies that each of these nations were using. And so, like I say, I know some of the facts on some of the ships and some of the boats and some of the aircraft, but not everything here. So the idea of this is really, really good. I just don't know how well it's been properly balanced in. But I do think we should see about producing another engine plant, because we will acquire some more, I do believe, in Bohemia and Moravia and other places, but we don't want to get too far behind if we want to continue to motorize our forces. And this is just, should we have more civ ICs, because we've added more doohickeys to have to build to achieve the same result. The idea was that surface raiders would be able to turn their engines off and drift and save fuel. Yeah, you do have loitering with the idea of surface raiders, for sure. And also, I think also the element there that IKB is looking at is, if you're talking about the difference between a diesel and a steam turbine that uses heat. A diesel engine, you can virtually turn it on and go. Okay, so you can turn that engine off. You can sit out there, drift around if you're like a raider, like he's talking about, and turn it on and go. But if you're talking about a steam engine, you have to build up enough heat. So if you turn your engines off, you may have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I don't know, an hour. I just honestly don't know, and it very well may vary. And some of the stuff I do know is also some movies I watched way back when about merchant vessels in World War II and getting on often maybe a coal power, coal powered stuff engine there, and again maybe more because the engines in the Liberty ships were fuel oil because America had plenty of oil and it didn't want to have too many men down in the the hull of the ship shoveling coal, so they used fuel oil, but those were reciprocating, chung 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 back steam engines in the Liberty ship. There were still lots and lots of coal based merchant vessels running around, and some navies, older, out of date navies, were still. And I would have to guess something like the Schleswig-Holstein and some of the other earlier vessels here are still running off of coal. And I'm not sure whether these would be turbine or reciprocating coal engines, probably reciprocating engines, but I'm not sure. But if you turn those off and they cool, not turn them off, shut them down for like 5 minutes, but if you shut them down for 5 hours, you may take a lot of time to get up to enough heat to go get speed going. So a diesel engine could you just immediately turn on, immediately turn off, and not have a problem with significant startup time. So if coming over here, Pearl Harbor, all those battleships sitting there on Sunday, I presume all their engines were cold. So even if you had a 20-minute, a 30-minute, warning from the radar, incoming Japanese aircraft, scramble, 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 or whatever it would be, alert, 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 those battleships very likely couldn't have gotten anywhere, couldn't even gotten started. Now you could have gotten the fighters up, fighter aircraft up into the air and protect them more better, and other things like that. But those, I'm presuming, sitting there on Sunday, they didn't have their engines warmed up. A lot of times, they might have, because a lot of times these big fuel oil ships, even like the New Jerseys, the Iowa class battleships, they'll have one of their boilers warmed up at all times when they're sort of operational, sort of in a situation like being deployed out, even in peacetime, but being deployed out for a possible conflict with Japan. They might keep a boiler running all the time. And so that way they could do maintenance and whatnot on the other boilers and other parts of the engines and just switch out which one is going on and just use enough fuel to keep one of them going. So at least you could get enough power to get your vessel out of the port or whatever, but not really be able to go into combat. So that is one element that I can see that IKB is pointing out about diesels and the Germans. And it's something, and as he points out, the Graf Spee and the other big vessels were using diesel. It's something that you have to look at a structural basis. It is not a good idea to have mixed fleets. Like I say, to my knowledge, everything destroyers, and even down, I think, in destroyer escorts, that basically frigates, but destroyer escorts that the Americans were running, they were running with fuel oil. You had to get down to much smaller vessels, whether PT boats or local defense vessels, or things that are sort of below ship ratings. to find either diesel engines or whatever, and that's a much more localized situation. You for supply, and so we're looking, supply here and supply of equipment also. Okay, infantry guns we got a cushion up, but we're not producing. Are we producing any infantry guns? Okay, let's just check and see. Mountain guns, yes. Mortars, anti-tank guns. We're not producing any infantry guns. Well, let's see about producing some infantry guns. Well, wow. Mm. Germany had two basic infantry guns, which was the a short 75 and a short 150. Okay. Do we just not research them? I very well could have missed that. Let's go to Universal. Maybe we have not researched. Those are mountain guns. Now let's look over here and output here. Maybe we haven't. No, here we are. That's what I was looking for. 75, the 105. Why don't I see? I mean, am I just being blind? I could just be missing it. Oh, here they are. Wow, I'm just blind. Yes. Hello, Milendo 571. Sorry if I'm butchering that. Yes. Okay. Yes, I found it right here. Yes. Okay, so we are producing those, but not enough. So let's tag that in because we keep clicking the wrong thing here. That will get us a bit more. I know we need more trucks. We're not catching up too fast, but we're having engine and rubber problems. Okay. Okay, yes, we're ordering up a bunch of these divisions again, which will give us a deficit of equipment, but might as well have that now. Yeah, you can see here, and again, that's a big hit just because we're attempting to, though failing, to fill supply deficits by units there. So like I say, I'm loving the varieties of resources needing to build things. I am far from convinced that they've done a good enough job, and I'm not saying that they're not really trying to work at it. I'm just saying needs more work at balancing all this stuff out. Okay, so now we should have some west wall decisions, I believe. Yes, west wall here. We want to do that, which will take 8 civilian factories here for 28 days, but we'll get this then. And we want to do that. All right, so we needed to do west wall if we're going to be going, if we're going to keep pushing. I would have made the west wall a requirement for the Sudeten, push, just because it was only the belief in that they had a secure, relatively speaking, situation to push on the Czechs that they could defend against a French attack. Okay, well, we very well may do a 1940 start the war, because that is often my want to do 16 days. Yeah, we'll do the first Vienna. Basically, that is to give this strip of land to Hungary. Not quite that simple, but okay. Right spot? Yeah. Okay, so now that we have got the 105, we can do this. I mean, it's a minor piddly thing, but I think a little better linking in what is, making sure it's easy to know what is needed to unlock some of those things. We can, whatever, we don't care about that.
Achtung!
Japanese to cause trouble. Let's create another command here.
Angetreten.
With forces down here. Yes. And let's find a general. Schroeder. Okay. We'll do Schroeder.
Befehle. Ausrücken.
And we may want to move him to the west here.
Ausrücken.
Okay. Here. We can't do this because we need to do the, I think we're researching that gun right now. Good. Well, producing engines. We're trying to catch up here. Trying to catch up there, but again, we have the engine limitation problem. I think also affects, we can see it affects these guys, all of these. Those yellow are things that we don't want to try to produce now. You know, one thing that I think we're lacking is radio equipment. So, let's produce more radios. I know it didn't have a big red thing either in production or reserves or production, daily production numbers. We'll find the radios here. They are. But what we do see here is, no, here is here we are at 88%. So we're going to do this now. Oh, we don't have truck radio technology. Okay, so when we get a free slot, we'll do truck radios. And we can produce more. Well, since we do have a significant engine limitation, I don't like that. So, well, let's stick it way out here. And we can, I know I will overcompensate for some lacks, but it's just, Norway, I don't care enough, go away. Yeah, go away, Norway. We have.
Achtung!
Let's give this to.
Ausrücken!
Okay, so. And Volkswagen and Heinkels. All right. Okay, well, we can 21 days befriend Japan. I would say historically, both China and Japan were trying to befriend Germany more so than Germany trying to befriend either one of them. Black defenses, 14 days. Yeah, let's do that. And, okay, aircraft. I don't think that'll do us for the truck radios, but let's. Okay, do we want formations? We want more fighter aces. I think we'll go with formations. Now, here, but I don't think we get truck radios. Okay, 39. We could do that. Swimming equipment, add on armor. Woolly heat ammunition, which is very nice. Okay, yeah, let's. Let's do this. And initially, the Germans were more favorable towards China. Oh yes, very much so. Hey, what's your opinion of the Darkest Hour mod? A shame that they didn't update it yet. I have not, and I know there's a Darkest Hour mod for Hearts of Iron 4, I believe, and I know the old one. I have not played it. So Storm incoming, I don't have an opinion yet. I don't want to until I play something, at least some element of it. I don't have an opinion of it, either good or bad. So just no opinion. Sorry. Um, Someday I'll get to it. I intend to play just about every significant mod for Hearts of Iron 4 at some point, but don't. Yes, China. Even though Germany was one of the nations carving up bits and pieces of China, China and Japan did get along. China and Germany did get along fairly well. China does join World War One mostly to get back the German controlled territories. How do I put this? Once Germany was removed as a factor of controlling actual Chinese territory, the nationalist government, and especially in the 1920s, the Chiang Kai-shek nationalists were a rather revolutionary bunch. They were also very nationalistic. Revolutionary doesn't necessarily mean communistical in leveling, either communist or making everybody equal. But they were a very sort of revolutionary party and very anti-Western. Now, by the 1930s, they sort of calmed down that anti-Western, realizing that, yes, American and British and other boats up on some of their major rivers and lakes were a big, losing of face for China. It would be using a period, being sort of shameful for them. But they were probably a net good. They could probably see that it is a net good, and that to modernize China, I think Chiang Kai-shek and his leadership, shall we say, realized that doing what Mao did, everybody go out in your backyard and make steel, almost literally. or other sort of internal revolutionary means of modernizing China was not the best way to go about it. Do the Japanese model in which Japan invites not European / American development and in there. Now they grab hold of it, and since America is sort of the first one really knocking on their door, America is not trying to grab up territory; they just want access to markets and whatnot. So they're not trying to own China, or I mean, well, the Americans are not trying to own Japan in the physical sense of owning territory. Might own a factory here or there or something like that, but not trying to own the country. And I think the Chinese are by this point are finally realizing that the Japan model is the way to go. So embrace interactions with the West. Understand that, well, for right now, you got Shanghai, you got Hong Kong, Macau, and whatever this French thingy is down here. Yeah, you're going to have some actual territory controlled by foreigners, and you're going to have some foreign warships on your um, uh, rivers and lakes, sort of keeping the peace and keeping the foreigners' assets from being damaged. Yeah, but ultimately in the long run, it's going to be better for ourselves. But since Germany isn't one of those powers that is actually occupying parts of China, they were more looked favorably upon by the nationalists to come in and help them organize up militarily. And if you look at Japan versus China, China looks like, and this starts before the Nazis are in power. Um, China looks to be the stronger nation, and in ways it probably is. But obviously, in ways Japan is stronger. Japan isn't able to fully defeat China, so we can look at it that way too. Um, but China isn't able to defeat Japan either. So it's that kind of thing. So Germany is one of the places that, or one of the countries that are really embedded in China. It's doing really well. But Japan does massive lobbying into Germany, into Hitler, and they push it also along an ideological line in favor of Japan, including along their weird racial beliefs. Because Japan at this point in time, in 1939, 1940s, they are hyper racists. I mean, they are massively racists, and they see themselves very much like Germany sees itself for Europe. They see themselves for Asia, and that they're some sort of super race, physically and ancient stuff. So they're very very much looking at that kind of aspect, and so they're really appealing to Hitler on those kind of grounds. So they eventually get Germany to flip. But it's really both sides are pushing. Both sides have ambassadors, special ambassadors, various other things that are Germany come to my side. Germany come to my side. Okay, what is Storm saying? Coming back real quick to Darkest Hour mod, is rather more historical way to approach World War II. I find it more enjoyable than Black Eye's less complex production, but also had a playthrough with BICE, so I get why it's so popular. Oh yes, and it's I complexity doesn't necessarily make a better game. It can, but it's just something that needs to sort of be balanced. History and complexity and what you're doing. And I do want to try Darkest Hour at some point, but I really want to play through and get to understand the economy here before I jump to another mod. So it'll be a while before I try Darkest Hour, but I will try it at some point. So keep checking back, keep asking about it. Someday it will be a yes, but just not today,
Achtung!
or near future. Obviously not
Ausrücken!
today, but Okay, so we have better bombers, Kuba wagon. Okay, so now that we've got the Kuba wagon, that's right. We've got the Kuba wagon, and yeah, let's come up here. Oh, well, no, I should look at this. I think what I look at this is from this perspective. Let's come here. I want to see. Okay. No, it's not going to let us show. Oh, okay. Well, fuel capacity is the same. Here's what's wrong here. Fuel usage is actually down. Between this vehicle, it was using 0.2. This vehicle is using 0.17. So they got that right. This is using 112, and this is using 112 as well. Or no, yeah, 112. Okay. But IC cost. The Kuba wagon. It's a Volkswagen Beetle, people. If you don't understand, for the motor, the transmission, the wheel, the drivetrain, all of that, that is the same as an early Volkswagen Beetle. I know it changes over time, but that's what that is. It is set up, and that car is a lightweight car. So fuel usage down should be less because it's this thing. I don't know this, but this looks like a easy 6 passenger car. This looks like maybe a 4 passenger car. I don't know if those things. Now, I don't know about these other the stowers, whether they look 4-wheel drive, but I don't know. The Kuba wagon, the good element of the Kuba wagon is its simplicity. It is 2-wheel drive. 4-wheel is better, but 4-wheel is more complex for production costs than time. I don't know the weight difference between the American Willys Jeep um, versus the Kuba wagon, but they're probably fairly comparable. Now, the Willys Jeep, I would overall say is better. My granddad had a surplus one that was painted sort of orange on his ranch way back when, and I learned as a kid just sort of how to drive it a bit. Not that I was any great driver of it, and eventually it wasn't running anymore. But if I have a fondness for it, I do think it's better with its 4-wheel drive and whatnot. Now, the Kuba wagon is so light, and if you're talking about an army, you're talking about a lot of men around, that everybody can get out, and you can get out and push or get out and lift up that vehicle and move it out of a stuck position rather easily. But the simplicity of manufacture, partially it's just as lightweight as a utility. Like I say, to get across rough country, it could be everybody out but the driver, and the driver drives it, or across a river or some mud puddle or whatever. Or it could just be, if you get stuck, everybody out, and we push/lift up this lightweight vehicle and get it going. So you don't need the 4-wheel drive as much. I think it's a bit quicker handling than the at least Jeep, but I don't know if that really matters, and it's not that much of a difference. Um, But again, and I get things wrong too in my analysis of games and history. Trust me, I know that. But the idea that the Kuba wagon takes more IC cost than any of these other vehicles, and to my knowledge at least, of the major production, and this is one of the top ones, light utility military vehicles, this is the cheapest and easiest to build. Um, and yes, I know you have at this time particularly, you have the Krupp, the company, Protaz, the vehicle, was a little lightweight truck. And this could sort of kind of be symbolizing other lightweight trucks, lighter than, do we have other truck types in here somewhere? I don't know. But, other than just more basic military trucks, yeah, you might, but really this is spamming out Kuba wagons. So, in my opinion, they're getting this wrong. This is sort of and it's coming from, I don't know if Hart or if Paradox really is the starter of this, but is the idea that each of these things gets in some ways more and more costly. Where in reality, some of the reasons that this is, this, and again, I don't know the Stower 1500, but this might be a better vehicle, for Germany, should be better stats. We could talk about the stats on speed or whatever, but for functional military use, this might be a better vehicle. This is just so good because it's so cheap to produce. But I guess I will. But should I even? Should I even go over to? No, I shouldn't. I should stick with this thing. This is 220. And this is 230. IC cost. And it's the same production resource. Where I think we should probably drop it down to 1 steel. That's arguably. And it should go down to 2 per unit cost. So, that's just obviously off the top of my head and not done 100, research just how much steel is used, how much production time is used in this versus one of these other vehicles. But the benefits from this should be cheaper and easier to produce. I don't know that speed is the 1 kilometer or whatever speed improvement is worth it. So, no, we're going to stick with this. I shouldn't have even researched that. Because it is not an improvement for Germany.
Achtung!
So that would be one of where they got things wrong. Again, I could be wrong on some of this stuff too. I'm not saying I'm always right or anything like that. Okay, so we're no longer the effects of the West Wall, which means our civilian construction now is capable. Took 8 away. Now let's do another military factory. We like those, of course. Sort of maxing out there. But we have other places we can put military factories. And again, we're going to wait to get some more engines. Well, let's get mountain warfare. Get that. I prefer not to have a deficit of that. Okay, well, let's end this episode. I know it's gone on a bit long. I want to thank everyone who's made it this far. And if you haven't already, of course, hit that like button and please subscribe if you're new around here. See you next time for more, yes, more Hearts of Iron. Don't worry, guys, we're going to continue the live stream, just breaking it into episodes. I'm going to make a save here. All right, there we go. So, yeah. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is, of course, Gamer 1745 here playing Hearts of Iron 4's Black Ice, taking a look at the new economy and how they're developing things historically. Okay, so we have flag defenses now in the west. Region 1, where is that? Okay, yeah, Westfalen, Wester, Hanover. So up in the north is where that is. I really would love to get some more of the Western ones done, but we'll see about that. Synthetic rubber, okay, has improved oil plant. So we need to research improved oil plant to get that. Oh, well, here's 2 engine factories here. Okay, well, okay, I missed that. Oh, no, we've already done that one. That's right. Oh, boy. Sometimes they use beige as the color for done, and if you come and research, beige means it's undone. Come over here, and this has always confused me. Come over here, beige or whatever means it's already been done. Okay, we could expand Austrian, which would be rather nice. Naval expansion. Fate of Czechoslovakia. April, sort of early. Well, I think this would be our biggest sort of change here. It's 50 days. Let's do this. Let's start this. Bulgaria requests German arms. Yeah, we want to organize up and get Bulgaria more friendly to us. Okay, mortars, fine. So we're now in 39. Do we want to do that? Yes, we do. I think that'll get us some of our better guns for our tanks. Okay, and that. Now let's. Yeah, we will go with better here. And yes, better 110s and better Stukas. Do we have a okay, we need Volkov. Okay, here. That's what we need to do. Get the Condor up. No, we don't care about them. They can just go whatever they want to do. Yeah, we're back to engine capacity problems, but we should have an engine capacity power plant or capacity plant up very soon. Yes, right now the German army is woefully weak. Now, again, let's look at logistics here. Trucks, light vehicles, but I think we should add another. We'll put them out here in the west. Add a unit. Okay. Okay. Prague, Bohemia, Moravia. Yeah, it'll be part of the Reich. Okay. Will become known as Bohemian Rape. This is what historically happened, but I am not satisfied. Game mechanics versus reality. In my opinion, and yes, this is my opinion, and just one guy, playing games and talking on YouTube here, but in my opinion, Czechoslovakia is in a really weird position for the game mechanics of puppet states. And I know there's different levels of, dominions and whatnot. There was a sizable, and I'm not talking about Sudeten land that we've already got, but there's a sizable German-speaking minority within Bohemia and Moravia. When Germany takes it over, if you could babble some German, and I sort of mean it that way, meaning you could speak some not like you're fluent and you convince everybody that you're German, but if you could babble some German and you want to declare yourself German, you got German papers. That's my understanding. And if you were a young man, you very well may be called up and at some point into the because they had conscription going on and whatnot. So you'd be called up into the military, or whatever. If you wanted to claim to be German, you could be German as long as you could sort of babble it. They weren't doing some sort of blood tests or pull out your ancestral records to prove that you're somehow German from the old Austro-Hungarian Empire or Austrian Empire. No, they're just, hey, you want to be German, you're German. Now, that's not getting into the SS or some other wacky Nazi stuff, but just if you wanted to be German, you were German. If you wanted to be Czech or whatever, you're Czech. So there was a sizable minority of people, particularly in and around Prague, that had German ancestry, again from the old empires, or just thought, hey, yeah, I speak some German. It looks like the the winning side, if you will. So let's go with that. And for as far as I can tell, there is a lot of collaboration on the production side of for everything. whether it's food or whether it's, machine guns and aircraft and whatnot. And there's a lot of collaboration, including innovation for new tank models, new aircraft models, new artillery models. There's a lot of that going on under the Germans. Now, it's probably not as enthusiastic and as well done as if it would have been for the Czech government, but there's a lot of stuff going on there. And although there are a few strikes kind of thing that do happen, um, there's a lot of or no, there's a very little, I should say, resistance operations going on. You do have the assassination of Heydrich, Reinhard Heydrich, but that's with some Czechs that were parachuted in from Britain. And they sort of kind of hooked up with the local resistant types, and there was sort of this building of, organized resistance, not action so much like sabotage or anything like that, but just sort of networking and organizing up resistance networks going on. And I don't think the resistance networks that these guys hooked up with knew that their target was to go after Reinhard Heydrich. They might have stopped that because they were sort of, to some degree, get along until the right moment, shall we say. And they didn't want to invite. There was not a huge, like we might see in, places like France or the Netherlands, and even in the early days, there isn't any real active resistance there. Again, just networking going on. But it's like the situation up in Denmark. Denmark, well, one, the Germans take a very, very sort of velvet glove approach to Denmark and occupation. And to the point of allowing the Danish army to continue to exist, but just, hey, stay in your barracks and don't do nothing until, and that's the way it continues. The Danes don't do any active resistance until the moment that there's the big national uprising. I forget whether it was late 44 or early 45 or whatever. It was well after the D-Day landings, well after the idea that, the Allies are coming now. Not just that we know the Allies are going to win, but now is the time to uprise because the Germans won't be able to bring in large forces to suppress us because they're, fighting on 2 or 3 fronts, however you want to look at it. They don't have the reserves to come after us. And by uprising, we shut down, military production that's going to Germany, food that's going to Germany. We shut down, we caused them to not be able to, send pull forces out of the Denmark to some other place, so that they do strike when they're sort of ready. And there is some of that going on. But here, in Czechoslovakia or in Bohemian Moravia, but it really isn't as much. And so the game mechanics of the puppet, the one area, the big area here that I would say within the game mechanics until late war is manpower. And so I'm going to pick this time instead of the historical option. What I would do is that if you pick that, I would just reduce down the recruitable population in some of these, in these provinces, if you know what I mean, and just do that artificially to represent the idea that you don't have, whether it's conscription or volunteers, anywhere near the scale of you do in other German areas. That's how I would handle it, because otherwise it is virtually integrated. And it's sort of like what happens up here, this area here. Yeah, there's lots of Poles, lots and lots of Poles. Actually, by this stage, a majority of Poles. But they cooperate heavily with the Germans because Germans controlled this area in living memory. It was just 20 years before. So yeah, if you're 20 years old, you didn't have, German overlords, if you will, Germans running the place because, or, even if you're 25 or something, because you probably don't remember being a 5-year old. So you don't have that in your memory. But everybody else, the 40-year-old, the 50-year-old, yeah, the Germans are just back. Now they end up being Nazis, which are, particularly cruel and wanting to erase, um, Poland as existence. So it turns bad very quickly. But they're used to German control, and I would argue that, again, outside of the population question, in the former German territories, and particularly, of course, Danzig, but which is vast majority German, not just like a 60-40. It's more like a 80-20, 80% German, or some sort of percentage like that. Vastly, and there's still lots of Germans in places like Poznan and whatnot. I would organize those up into the Reich. Slovakia would be a state with German support. Yeah, we'll go with that, as opposed to, we'll just set up Slovakia as historical. So not everything neatly fits into game mechanics. And it could just be from my sort of history of playing, Hearts of Iron. Oh, we'll form the Infantry Regiment, yes. Before, where Czechoslovakia, Bohemia, Moravia is just fully incorporated into the Reich with little consequences. And it may be that, but yeah. Okay, some people, this is IQB saying here, some people just want to make something that makes a big boom and don't care who the boss is. Oh, certainly. Certainly there is that. I don't know about the workers, but as far as I can tell, I think mostly that the Tatra company is sort of a Sudeten company. I sort of kind of looked into it, and modern Tatra doesn't really want to promote up on their website much about their activities during German occupation. Because they continue automotive development, including some really neat truck automotive development that is probably better than much of other German stuff. Now they're producing their trucks in the hundreds instead of thousands or tens of thousands. So, and it's like, no, we produced, some year, 250 trucks or 300 trucks, or I don't know, some, in the hundreds. And I think part of it is allocation of materials as opposed to production capacity of the factories. I think they're sort of on the short end of the stick, but they're producing some really nice stuff, and they're the ones that I think produce the drivetrains for the Pumas and whatnot later on that are part of the development. I think it was Tatra, but it could have been another Czech company. But so there's a lot of there's a lot of other development going on as well. And you're right, they just want to make it, and so that's, compare that. But I'm sort of looking at this as comparing the situation in Poland versus the situation, the puppet states that would be for Belgium and the Netherlands, or occupied France. This is much more integrated into the German economy. And realize, particularly Bohemia and Moravia, were very much traditionally integrated into the German economy. Now, the Austrian German economy, yes, because this was the main industrial heartland of the Austrian Empire. So, it's not so foreign to them. Again, it ends up being they're controlled by Nazis and not just Germans, in which they want to erase, one way or another, the ethnic minorities. Now, and for the Czechs, it was maybe not such as big as a racial question as it is a cultural question, where the Poles and others, it's more of a racial question, bloodline question. So, like I said, it seems to be that if you were early on willing to declare that you were German, they were just going to go with that. Now, that might not be, like I say, might not be any good for um, uh, the SS and all their wacky law rules and laws and whatnot. But for the standard German stuff, yeah, it was going to be enough. Okay, we will, because we're talking about this part out here. We'll give that to Hungary. Slovakia won't do much with it. Get the Hungarians out onto the border there with the Soviet Union when the time comes. Okay, so early radar. First do this because this is a single one here. Okay, we needed, what was it? Fuel storage, improved class. Well, let's go look and see. What was it that we needed? We needed tank radios for the one. Oh, it was one. What was I trying to build? Something again. This is the sort of the complexity, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh boy, was it a research thing that I needed to? No, let's look at this other slot here. Boy, I forget. Was it one of these? Oh, we need to. I'm not sure. It was one of them that needed. Oh, national focus. Yes, that's what it was. See, again, complexity doesn't always equal a better game, but it can be. Okay, it's here. We need an improved oil plant. Let's just, not that we have to do that either now or in particular, but okay, there's improved oil plant. What does that get to us? Okay, fuel gain from refineries, 25%, which is pretty big. Coal for going into synthetics up to, well, I think we have plenty of coal. Synthetic fuel costs, energy costs go up a little bit. Yeah, we're down. We're actually out of the 80s, so that's good. And refinery construction speed. Yeah, we could do that. Just that would be a good thing to do. Now here, did we get? Okay, we've got tank radios. Good. Or truck. We need truck radios. Yeah, let's do that. And insufficient rubber. But I think we're going to need to, because I got some other stuff I've got to go do today. So I think we're going to end this episode. I know it was sort of short, but I hope it was entertaining. I want to thank you all very much. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron. Okay, guys. Yeah, I do have to go. Got stuff to do. I'm building my secret lair in the mountains. But I want to thank the new IKBs, Storm Incoming, NMDB, Milaudis, who else? Oh, and of course Don Ramirez for the 6 EUs or €6. Jeton 1, Eric, of course, Arno for the great moderator that he is. Skaven, if you're still around. Amazing if you're still around. And who else? Just going back up the chat here. Ship Commander, thanks for being here. Thank you, everybody. And MDB, if I didn't already say it. Crispin, who was here for at least a little while, and Toyjet as well. Thank you all. I will be back tomorrow with some War Thunder. So if you guys want to join, Arno, Toyjet, anybody, join us, either watching or playing. And Friday, I'll be playing, I forget what game for Slytherin, and then we'll be back next weekend. So